All right. Here we go.
This is Cheffing and Chit talking part 1 officially.
This is our first official episode.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Kyra.
I'm Chris. And
this is Cheffing and Chit talking.
yeah, we're going to make a bibimbap. Bibimbap, Korean style dish, and we're going to have some fun. The first guest tonight is going to be Ross Fulkerson.
Yep. The idea of this, if you want to go look back at one of our old episodes, is that we cook dinner and then talk about things related to climbing or not related to climbing. So
we're going to have some fun with it and see what happens.
Enjoy.
Hi.
Wow,
That's quite the entry for Ross. Welcome.
Well, first, thanks for having me in the apartment.
in your home.
Your own home.
Good to be home. Yeah, it's been a pretty wild World Cup circuit this year, and so many experiences and just opportunities to learn, and lots to look forward to moving forward. But also, I think one of the reasons why we all wanted to sit down right now, at least, is to kind of reflect on the past couple months and kind of just hear each other's perspectives about all the competitions we've been doing. So yeah, excited to get into it.
Yeah, I think we all have like pretty different perspectives. I did only the lead circuit, and I've never really identified as a lead climber before. You did both.
Yeah, I was only going to do the lead circuit and then ended up getting invites to like all the bouldering World Cups.
Yeah.
And making a final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
Yeah.
More on that later, probably.
And then Chris couldn't do any of the World Cups except for the Salt Lake ones.
Yeah, so I just did the Salt Lake ones because I couldn't travel with a visa.
Yeah.
But
getting a visa in the U.S. is hard.
Surprisingly challenging.
As a South African citizen.
Yeah, there are hopes and dreams to change that. So getting visas will become more easily and travel and compete more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we all have interesting things to say.
Yeah. But credit is due. It was Ross's idea to make the bibimbap. And yeah, tell us why.
Korea just as a whole was an amazing country and super interesting culture and just lots of public like outdoor spaces and active people everywhere. And
sweet.
The food was also amazing. So we're going to do our best to not offend anyone with what we create.
Yeah, this
today.
is Korean inspired. It is not traditional.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Well,
Let's do it.
back.
All right, bye, Ross.
Going out
Bye-bye.
the same way I came in.
See you later.
So we all actually live in the same condo complex, which is pretty awesome because we get to do dinner like this kind of all the time if we want to.
Literally climb, train, come home, make a good meal, socialize. Like
Repeat.
pretty sweet.
Repeat, yeah.
Yeah. Day in the life.
The inside of a broccoli tastes so good. Have you ever had a broccoli heart?
Really?
Yeah, you like just cut the edge of it off, get all the hard like fibrous bits off, and then the like inner white part tastes delicious. Like I just like it
Like
raw.
raw?
Yeah,
Whow.
I just always eat it, and then you don't have as much waste of the broccoli.
Can we get a
also.
taste test?
Yeah, hang on.
That's pretty fire.
I'll send it to you right now, man.
Take 4.
Alright, so guys, that means criticize us.
Yeah.
Criticize. Respectfully.
Respectfully criticize, yeah.
Constructive.
But that dinner was
Kinda
good.
good.
Literally nothing to criticize.
No, that dinner was
Yeah.
delicious.
No, there's
Exactly.
plenty.
Maybe in its tradition and how traditional it was.
Salt Lake
Yeah.
City bibimbap.
That was a first timer's bibimbap, but
Phenomenal.
other than that,
Yeah. We should put the
Delicious.
recipe in the...
we should. Yeah.
I'll keep the link. And
We ended up putting on.
It's just vegetables
We can
and
just talk about
rice.
it. We did zucchini, broccoli, daikon, carrots,
Yep.
tofu,
Mm-hmm.
and mushrooms. Me?
Yep.
Oh, and bean sprouts.
And bean sprouts. And then the egg on top.
And then the egg on top.
And kimchi and
Kimchi.
sesame seeds.
Kimchi, sesame seeds.
Yeah. We actually
spring
didn't
onion.
cook that much.
No, it ended up being...
We kinda just
cooked for a
constructed.
while, but that's what... Yeah, you don't
Is
end
it
up
not mutually exclusive? Cooking a
You
little.
cook a bunch of things that then you construct.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Good meal. I was stoked.
Yeah.
First time round.
Yeah.
What were your expectations going into the World Cup season this year?
Yeah, they were kind of all over the place. My biggest goal and like focus was to really get in lead shape after team trials. I made the U.S. national team just for ropes and was one spot off of the bouldering team. So that was like disappointing, but also like I was kind of looking forward to the focus just being on lead, and then ended up getting invites to the bouldering competitions, which I was super grateful for. So I kind of shifted shifted my focus towards the bouldering comps, and I think the expectation is always based around like a feeling rather than like a number or placement, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So like having realistic expectations for how well you can climb, like trying to climb to the best of your ability in any given situation, and then accepting wherever that places you in the field. And that takes some like experimenting around to like, but it doesn't really matter where you place in the rest of the field as long as you're like performing to...
Yeah, the goal is to like perform to your best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I just did a talk and I like talked about expectations versus goals, and
Yeah.
like expectations are where you become disappointed. It's like if you expect to make finals at every comp
Yeah.
and then you don't do it, it's like, oh man, like I missed out. Like I should have done that. Whereas if you have goals of making finals, then it's like you just keep working towards that goal, and if you accomplish it, it's like this awesome thing.
totally.
But it's not like something that you expect to do each time.
Does your goal not have like a date on it? So like, let's say your goal is to make that final.
I think
Is that then an expectation?
But the...
I think
that
it's
the
different
goal?
actually. I think it is different. The way you like
yeah.
put the pressure on yourself is different.
Or my goal is to like perform to the best of my ability, and then in the back of your head, like that the best of your ability is like going to be making a final.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, the goal is to like, it's not like a number. I like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Like that's what it was for me. Like going into the Salt Lake ones, I had like Meiringen and then Korea, and those were both like, okay, like I know I could climb a lot better, so my goal is just to climb to like what I know I can do, and we'll just have fun with it and see where that gets you. And
That makes
you
sense.
can always, I'd be surprised like how much you can do when you are climbing like at your best or doing anything at your best.
Totally. I was talking to my sports psych today actually about the difference of perceiving something as pressure versus perceiving something as a challenge.
Yeah.
And I actually thought this was super interesting. And she was like, the way that you think about pressure is like people crack under pressure. It's like this super negative thing. It's like something that you're fighting, and it's like not exciting to go up against. It's something that you're like, it's like not that exciting, basically. Bad words.
Yeah.
But a challenge, which is essentially the same thing, like
Yeah.
pressure versus a challenge,
It's an opportunity.
is
not
an
like a
opportunity.
necessity.
You face it head on.
Yeah.
You like all these. It's like all positive. And so like if you like think of something as a challenge versus the pressure of doing it, like the challenge of doing it,
Yeah.
it's just like that small change can really actually like completely
Make a
change how
difference.
you like make a difference on how you like approach it.
Well,
Totally.
it's funny, like it just sounds like if we put a positive mental spin on just about any challenge you have in life or competing, whatever it is, positive mental spin, and all of a sudden it's actually working towards the goal,
Yeah.
and it is better for you as an athlete or a person.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like we've even found that in the training center recently, like with really hard circuits or something. I was like, this is too hard. And then I was like, no, too hard is going to make me stronger. Like,
Be
it's
better.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely sucks, but
Yeah, it sucks in the
that
moment.
positive mental power goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Chris, so you just did the Salt Lake World Cups. How did they go for you?
They were good. It was interesting to find how not competing for a while kind of, I didn't think it would affect me so much, but it was definitely strange to go back into competition and be like, kind of like, oh, I don't really know how these emotions feel, and just slightly thrown off. But the first World Cup was a bit more spicy. Didn't feel like I climbed too well. I was like nervous and panicked. But then the second one felt way more comfortable, and it just showed in my climbing. Like I felt like I climbed better. I was getting points, and they were like simple mistakes, but stuff which you only learn and like solve through competing, and and doing more competitions.
Totally. I remember you had a really good last climb in the qualifiers too.
Yeah.
The 5th one was sick.
My toxic trait is dropping tops.
It's better than dropping starts.
It's better than dropping starts. Hurts the ego more though.
Yeah.
But anyway. So
Do you guys find that the round gets easier as you progress through it? Like your emotions, like you were saying, on boulder 1 versus boulder 5 in a qualifying round?
Oh, I think it totally
That's
depends.
a good question.
I think if when the round's going well, it's definitely easier to say that it gets better as you go. But if a round's going poorly, then it's really hard to turn that around sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
But then there's also, you got to have that mindset of like, you don't know how the guys have been going ahead of you.
Totally.
And who knows, maybe that first boulder, second boulder were the hardest and it hasn't had any tops. I kind of noticed myself doing that. Like if it doesn't go well, I'm like, oh, they could be really hard.
Yeah.
Just like keep it together,
That's
stay
usually
focused.
my method. But yeah, you can always be sad about it after the round.
Yeah, exactly.
So instead, like in the moment, you're like, man, nobody did that one. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's just hard.
I apparently did that as a kid. Like, so we did a little mock comp as a team when I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And me having like far too much confidence for any 13-year-old girl to have. They purposely made this first boulder like impossible.
Yeah.
And they asked us about it after the round. They're like, how did you guys all feel after not being able to do that first
Yeah.
boulder? Because they were trying to like test us mentally.
Yeah.
And I remember my answer, everybody was like, oh, terrible. I felt so bad. I couldn't get out of like that rut after the rest of the round. And I was like, oh, I just thought that if I couldn't do it, then nobody could.
Savage.
So I feel like it's like a different, like keeping that attitude though, like throughout a round is definitely good. Like you don't want to be like,
That's confidence.
exactly. You don't
You
want to
gotta
like
believe.
overdo it. Like you still want to like try hard on boulders and like make sure you get
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
But
There's a huge component of like gamifying,
Totally.
like especially behind the wall for me. Like when you come back from a climb, like figuring out what those 4 minutes or ideally more than 4 minutes looks like has been super fun. And in Salt Lake, that's kind of like the first time where I felt like I like, really had a good routine, and I had like talked with a friend before and kind of developed like a whole like breathing sequence, and I always like pick kind of like one point on the wall kind of right in front of me to like center my focus, and I can look at that same spot after like every boulder, and then just like laughing is like one of my most fun things, especially like after you do a boulder. It's easy to come back and just be like, oh my god, this shit is so fun. like just think about like where you are right now. Like there's all these people, like we've worked so hard to get here, and like I have the opportunity to go out to this next boulder and like showcase like everything I've worked hard.
Yeah.
And that just like makes me smile. And then once I'm like smiling, I just like, whew, it's easier to like flow and just have a good,
so do you do
good
that
sensations
in between boulders then? Like when you're in the chair behind the wall?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Like come back from a boulder, usually like,
So this is every time.
yeah,
Cool.
like sit on the ground or like not in the chair, someplace like a little bit removed from like the competition atmosphere, and like everyone like right next to each other for a couple minutes. Then just do like some deep breathing to like calm down my heart rate and everything. It's like right after coming back from a boulder. So do that for maybe a minute or 2 minutes if I have like a couple minutes on the clock still. And then once like the 4 minutes starts to like until you go out, then I guess it's still like 2 minutes of like slowing your heart rate, and then at the 2 minute mark, like start putting my shoes on, do a couple more like some deeper breaths that are like aimed at like kind of just distributing all the energy. I kind of like start moving around a little bit, like just give myself some taps and everything. I usually like close my eyes and like smile as I do my deep breaths, and then put my shoes on and everything, and like stand up with like 30 or 40 seconds left, and then do some like slaps everywhere and a couple like right before you go out, and then a couple more deep breaths like right before you get on the boulder, like because I feel like you'll get like really psyched right before you go through the curtain,
and then you don't want to
and
be
then you see the boulder and it's like
Calm down
so
a
it's like
little bit.
it's so much about just regulating energy and
Yeah.
like your mental space.
Do you do that in training too? Like to practice it pre-comp, or like only like specifically in competitions?
Yeah, definitely in training as well.
I've for sure seen you practice that practice.
Yeah, I can see you do I've seen you do the breath for sure, like that, like before getting on the wall in training too.
It's hard to do that in training, like replicate that same level of just energy, and it's so easy to get distracted when you're hearing all of these other people and names and cheering and just it's a different environment than what you're training in. So in the training, I think that's something that helped a lot in the old TC was when we did some of those mock rounds, like having a really big crew there and it just made it, yeah, exactly. It made it easier to like put yourself in that atmosphere, but still like a long way from the actual thing.
Yeah, it definitely felt more real. Chris, do you do anything like that? Like try and like center yourself before getting on the wall or anything?
Try to. I definitely don't have as good of a like structure to it, but it is just getting like and sitting down in the chair and like calming down and just like trying to recenter everything. Okay. And just like if the boulder went well, it went well and keep riding it, but also like forget about it. Like the boulder's gone well, like it's over. You got your next one in front of you. And it's just like trying to come out with the best positive aspect and like mental state to pull hard again.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like being too hyped. I'm usually too hyped.
Yeah.
I like do everything fast.
Standard procedure.
Standard procedure. And so, everybody talks about listening to hype music before comps.
Yeah.
And for me, hype music made me like a 9 on the scale of like 1 to 10 of hype. And so I'd get on the wall and just like shake myself off. Yeah. And so like for me, I actually have to listen to like opera music and like chill out.
Yeah. That's super cool.
And behind the wall, it's all about like bringing myself down a couple notches instead of getting hyped.
Yeah.
So,
but it's also funny because like for the different disciplines,
it's also different.
It's so different. Like for speed climbing, when I was doing that, the more hype you were, the better.
Yeah.
Because it was so muscle memory. It was just like panic and go.
That's a great way.
Put that on a shirt one day.
Panic and go.
Panic and go.
I like that,
John Brosler. And then for like, I feel like bouldering was like kind of in the middle, maybe like a 5 or a 6 out of the 10. And then lead climbing was
lower,
below that.
Yeah, for sure.
But still like enough to be like psyched and motivated, but like also calm and collected.
Yeah.
I don't
know, do you guys feel like that?
Yeah, totally. I need to do a lot more work to figure out what that routine would be for lead climbing.
Yeah.
Especially like this season, there's been a lot of like just ups and downs in terms of like expectations for like how to climb or like.
It's also like a lot more tactile. Is that a word?
Tactile.
No, like I meant like tactics.
Tactics.
But there's a lot of
Tactic
tactics in lead climbing because, especially in a qualifying round at a World Cup, like who do you watch? Like what's your warm up? How long is it going to be until your next one? How many times do I watch the video? Am I going to do the beta in the video? Is there new beta that people found? All these things, and then do you miss those if you don't watch enough people? And I feel like that's been something I've been struggling with too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think in the lead comps this year, it was just like so close to the Olympics, having to qualify again and then go to the World Cups. It just didn't really feel like I was ready, I guess. Like I thought I was, and then I thought I prepared really well, and then I got to the World Cups and was like, wow, I'm not as fit as I thought I was.
Yeah.
And so I had these, not expectations, but goals that were like way too high for how hard I had trained.
Yeah, same.
Thinking that I had trained really hard, but I think I just like wasn't mentally as in it.
Sure.
And now here I am post, 5 of the World Cups, and I'm like, now I'm mentally in it, and I feel way better, and I'm like, oh, this is what I should have been doing, like, since January.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for next year.
Yeah. And Jakarta coming up soon.
And Jakarta
how have the previous World Cups changed your like mental approach for training now for Jakarta?
I think, not being as strong as I thought I was at the first 4 World Cups, they were all kind of in a row. And I'm sure you relate to this too, of like you knew what you had to do, and there just was no time.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's like you didn't feel like quite good enough, and then you just didn't. I knew exactly what you had to do to get to that point, but I just didn't have time to do it.
So what did you do, or like what did you change between comps? Because I felt the same way where, like going into the season, I was like, okay, like ropes were my priority, and then all of a sudden, I'd done all these boulder comps, and those were great, and I'm like super thankful and like glad I focused and put the energy into those because I learned a ton from all the bouldering comps. And then it's like, oh shit, it's lead season. Like,
like what do you do?
And I kind of went into the first one in Innsbruck being like, it's okay, I'll just climb really fast.
Yeah.
And power endurance will be enough. And then it wasn't. So then you have to like let go of those expectations and be like, okay, like what can I actually change ahead of next weekend to climb better? And be okay with just incremental like progressions.
I definitely really tried to focus on like what takeaways can I have? Like maybe this season isn't going to be the season that I wanted it to be. Yeah. But then like also accepting that that's because I didn't prepare it the right way.
Totally.
And what can I take into next season? So like making sure I gave each competition my all and like tried to use as many good like mental tactics and like physical tactics, warming up, whatever.
Yeah.
So that I know for like next season, both nationals and hopefully World Cups, like how to go into it with like a better mental space and physical ability.
Yeah, and you can test so many other things in like your pure endurance in a World Cup, and
like where do you breathe, where do you chill out, like
exactly.
how do you chill out?
So would you consider those like the small wins from like each competition, like
Definitely.
learning?
Yeah.
What do you think was like the most profound like small win?
That's a good question.
One of the big ones is that the first couple competitions, I was like really shaky on the wall, like like the Elvis leg that everybody probably knows. I was getting that like really aggressively on a couple of them, and I talked to my sports psych, and she actually used the same thing that you were saying about finding that like one spot on the wall to like ground yourself. Because normally you use like grounding techniques, like your feet on the ground, or like the feeling of your socks on your on your feet or something. But you can't really do that while you're climbing, right? Because everything is dynamic. So finding something that's not moving, like a bolt hole, instead of like
really,
and so instead of like looking at your hand that's maybe shaky,
okay,
and then you're like, oh no, it's
I'm
shaking, and you
Look at
just
the
like
bolt hole.
keeps going. Look at something that's stable, and maybe like while doing that, taking a deep breath and saying relax, like maybe those 3 things are like what you do. And so I was able to take that from one competition, talk to my sports psych, then apply it at the next competition
and see the difference,
and that was a big win.
It's huge.
Yeah,
it's insane. It was funny because I was in Dallas now for the Youth World Championships coaching, and one of the kids, he was like on the wall and like climbing really well and got like one of the like rest points, and then immediately got into the rest, and then like started like all of a sudden he realized, like it looked like he realized where he was and started shaking. Like he was like flowing so well, climbing perfectly, got to the rest, and then just like started jittering around. And like you could see him trying to like calm down and like bring his breath back, started climbing again, and then got back into the flow. So it was really cool to see like a 15-year-old just like freak out, start shaking, and then like bring it back and go.
That is really cool. And that's like a skill of being able to work with yourself and do that.
Totally. I think it all starts with just being able to like recognize all the different like feelings in your body, and like just having a greater awareness of like, okay, like I'm pumped and I feel frantic, but then if you think about that for a couple seconds, you're like, okay, I'm actually like kind of only pumped here, and if I like really relax this other arm, I can like get a lot back, and that at least helps me to like distinguish between like true
pump
pump or just things that are gonna get your heart rate going really fast, and like detrimental or like anything that feels bad and stuff that's like actually feels bad and is consequential too, or like that you need to change.
Definitely. And I think getting that practice in like a World Cup setting is like just invaluable for the rest of the season and the next year.
It's huge.
So even though, like I said, the comps didn't go as well as I wanted, but I like completely changed my mindset about them, and I'm using them to hopefully improve for next year, this year.
Totally.
Yeah, that is the goal, like future climbing and like longevity. So. And
also hopefully get a top 40 spot, but maybe botch that one. Mostly because now I don't know, the rules of IFSC changed, and so now we only get invites based on how many people we get in top 40, like or additional invites. So it helps the team if we get team members in the top 40.
Yeah, top 40 or 40 through to 10,
11 through 40th especially,
Yeah, and then 10 down gets you automatic starts, but as an athlete. So, got to play the game.
Yep.
Okay. I think that was quite insightful and in-depth.
Yeah. That was a good amount of time too, I feel like.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody.
20 minutes. Or are we going to follow up? Any other questions? Anything else we should bring about?
I feel like, I guess maybe it's just the point that all of the things that we just talked about sound like they maybe only are applicable to like a World Cup, but you're definitely not. You can bring them into projecting or a session even.
Oh, totally. And the same like routine I just described for like before I go out for a World Cup climb, like I practice that in the gym, like on just everyday like normal sets, and it's so fun to flow at the same level you do in a competition in the gym. It like I guess I hadn't like intentionally like tried to do that very much until before the Salt Lake City World Cups, or for some reason I always like wait until I'm like feeling really strong to try and go do that, but I want to work towards doing that more like however you're feeling like in the moment, like just go try and like execute and perform like at your very best, and then that gets you used to just like using all the tactics and
Turning
habits you know to
on,
like climb as well as you can in the moment. And in the past, I've just like waited to do that before bigger competitions, which is like when I'm physically just like the strongest. But yeah, for your project, if you're projecting something, give yourself a solid amount of rest and do some visualizing, some breath work.
Some chilling out, listen to some opera music.
Yeah.
If you're like me and are way too
Yeah.
high strung.
Yeah. And also it probably applies like so many other aspects of life as well.
Totally, yeah.
Like any stressful situation, just being able to like calm yourself down and ground it.
Totally.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, maybe let's end on what is your next thing? What's the next thing you're doing? Bigger thing, little thing, whatever.
I want to do a 5:15 outside.
Wow, big thing.
Big thing.
That's sick.
Maybe not that big though.
All right, I want to do a V15 outside.
V15 and 515.
They're a lot shorter than the 5:15.
True. Yeah.
Like
Probably
way
just-
less moves.
Probably just as hard.
No, surely less moves, not as hard.
What's your next thing, Chris?
Yo, the same like hard sport route outside would be nice, but
Let's go to St. George.
St. George, pop tire.
I just want to push myself in
Yeah.
that regard.
Yeah.
Like I have never
Yeah.
spent a proper amount of time like projecting a boulder or a sport climb outside, which is embarrassing to say.
I haven't either, yeah.
It's time.
No, okay, then I would say like the next thing I'd want or from myself is just to feel like I've actually fully given into everything within climbing and like fully devoted to it and like feel like I'm getting as much out of every aspect the whole time. Like every like time spent training, I'm receiving value for. So
Gotcha. So like every session has a purpose. You're not just going into the gym.
I'm not just going to train. I'm going to like
I'm-
get
Check off
something
your
specific.
boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on
And
endurance
actually,
or strength and power and
Yeah.
finger strength.
Be more diligent and like present with all the training.
Totally.
Yeah. I think that's definitely kind of like what I was saying. I got into the trap of I was just like training endurance. And then I got to the World Cups and was like, I needed a lot more than endurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the same thing.
So I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your next one?
Ooh, well, I guess the next thing that I'm focusing on is definitely nationals. Trying to avoid the same thing I did last year at nationals, going in with a much more positive mental attitude and excitement for sure. Like definitely,
Yeah.
I feel actually excited for nationals this year, whereas last year I did not, and I felt like I had to do it. But then I'm also really excited to get outside and also just train a lot during the fall. Definitely want to go to St. George, try some hard sport routes. I also have never tried anything harder than 14A, and I've only tried one 14A, and I did it. So I want to do some harder stuff too.
Yeah.
So I'm psyched on that.
Yeah.
Oh, so much fun stuff to look forward to.
The
Hell yeah.
season to level up.
Utah's a good place to be.
Yeah. See you guys next time.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Good work, everyone. Woo!